Good afternoon and welcome to the show. I'm Lee Chui Lin. For many of us, the first thing we do every morning is to smack the snooze button in a vain attempt to get that extra 10 minutes. Now, new research suggests that it might not be the best way to start the day. And telling me about that, as well as the tricks to getting a good night's sleep, is Dr. Muhsin Ahmad Zahari, President of the Sleep Disorder Society of Malaysia. Welcome to the show, Dr. Muhsin. So firstly, what does the Sleep Disorder Society of Malaysia do?
Okay, we actually composed of professionals who actually involved in the field of sleep medicine. So there are doctors, I would say sleep technicians, we call it, or sleep laboratory experts. That's mainly the composition. And also we have few members who are actually interested in sleep, advocating sleep issue in the country as well internationally. And when we talk about doctors, the various field actually, sleep is not like heart disease, it's not like only brain disease, actually it's multi-disciplines by itself. So we have sleep physician from respiratory, breathing experts, lung expert, and also surgeon from those who ear, nose and throat experts. I myself psychiatrist by specialties, also neurologist, and pediatrician, and we have the list getting longer and longer as the fields grow. So what we are doing, actually, we are advocating sleep issue in the country. We also promote research and also public awareness. There's two different things between research and public awareness. So research means in the health sector, for example, the service, and as well at the university, as well as we're talking about public awareness, what we are doing today as well. And we also holding conference meeting annually. We hope to do it annually, and to make sure the public aware about this issue, as well as the professional that I mentioned earlier.
So as you said, it's a bit of a growing field.
Yes.
And is it a field that's only really gained a lot of ground in recent years? I mean, it seems as if increasingly there are more and more articles, more and more issues surrounding sleep. Is this a modern problem, or is this something that's been around for a while?
In the medicine itself, it's changing. Those days we're talking about lung disease, we're talking about heart disease, we're talking about organ-based disease. But now people not come to us with the organ disease or something like that. But people come, I have difficulty in sleeping. I have difficulty in thinking. That's one another example. So actually, this is what's the medicine by itself changing. So that's why the field of sleep itself also. From initially, we're just thinking about, that's probably brainwave is the main issue, or the problems, or is something like only in your mind, but the field is growing, and now actually a lot of, for example, relationship between sleep problem and obesity, with the heart disease, with the occupational related hazards, so all this actually evolving as the world getting busier, people getting more what they call wide spectrum, from working, and disturbing in the ordinary function, so that's why it is changing in that way.
What are some of the more common sleep disorders faced by Malaysians?
Okay, of course, well highlighted for even the sleep disorder, we highlighted quite successfully, I have to say, where we brought to the government, even we need to work more, like OSA, obstructive sleep apnea, which is, I would say it's a sleep problem, but it's more physically sleep problem, because of obstruction of your breathing, for example. So that's pretty common, and it's related to snoring and lack of oxygen during sleep. So that's result in what's deficient in brain function during that time. But beside that, also insomnia also important, which is people unable to sleep for various reasons, from probably mind-related issues, or neurological, or the brain itself, the chemical in the brain is not so balanced, I would say. So this is the range commonly faced by us as clinicians in our country.
Many of us complain of poor sleep, or not sleeping enough, or feeling tired and fatigued all day. What are some potential factors behind this?
Okay, I believe as what this discussion initially we planned for, actually we talk about, for example, we have a lack of sleep, we thought, as you rightly mentioned earlier, when we wake up by alarm clock, we tend to snooze off, this is the behavior itself, so, but the thing is, when we perhaps too busy, even before we go to sleep, our brain is not, or our body is not prepared for sleeping by itself. When we do work until the last moment, then we push ourselves to sleep, and we probably not sleeping regularly, and finally we wake up too early, for example. So many things we have to catch on. So finally, lack of sleep. So when we talk about lack of sleep, there's a medical related problem, or your lifestyle itself is not conducive for have a good sleep. So I think this is perhaps one of the contributing factors. And when lack of sleep is not a disease, I'm not go to that extent as yet, but when just simply not lack of sleep and it happen for long term, chronically, and your body perhaps have difficulty to cope with that. For example, we have sleep debt. When the body try to adjust, we become stressed up. The stress hormone come out. All these things will make yourself feel poor motivation. You feel down, and of course, at the end of the day, your productivity, your works, also will be affected subsequently.
You mentioned there sometimes our lifestyle may not be conducive to good sleep. What does that mean?
Okay, sometimes our time management, life is changing, the world's getting busier, so we bring back home via internet, for example, online, we still can do work, we reply email, and this actually sometimes, when we go home, for example, traditionally we're supposed to be relaxed and spend time with the families, and enjoy our rest at home. But the lifestyle itself has changed, as I mentioned earlier. So when this change, you do work, on the bed, for example, or when you actually spend a lot of time thinking about your work, even come back home, actually you're not resting. Just imagine for 48 hours without resting, or you habitually doing this, like for 3-4 days a week, you just spend your time doing work, your brain never rests. When you're not resting, for example, when even you go to the sleep, when you try to be on the bed to sleep and rest, actually perhaps first your brain still working, and finally, even though you go to sleep, you anxious, you wake up intermittently, you not sleep well, your quality of sleep affected. Your sleep later, probably, usually you need to sleep, actually as a ordinary person, we perhaps need 7 to 8 hours to sleep, but you just slept for 4 hours, This all actually, because the demand in life, this might contribute to also why we see the sleep-related disorder or problems, increasingly recently.
So we also need to be conscious of quality of sleep, not just length of sleep. How can good sleep be defined? Okay. Everybody says you know it when you have it, but for those of us who don't have it, it is important to define.
So, of course, different peoples have different the needs of the quality of sleep itself. Some people sleep for 5 hours, 6 hours, they feel rested already. But some people probably needs extra 8 hours, 9 hours, And this is what you need to know about yourself, how your biologically needs in terms of sleeping, because the quantity of sleep is one thing, as you mentioned just now. Usually you sleep for 8 hours, but now you sleep for 4 hours. Of course, it's reduced in the number of sleeping hours. But quality of sleep, this is what I mentioned earlier about works, because I'm not trying to focus on the time. But when we have so many things, for example, we're not fully rested. So our brain actually, even though go to sleep but it's not ready or it's not sleeping that well. So if you awake many times, for example, this is I'll touch a little bit on the sleeping, what normal sleeping pattern. For example, we go phases to phases. First we say non-rapid eye movement sleep, then rapid eye movement sleep. So when we talk about this pattern of sleep, we need to have adequate, and the number of hours for each phases must be appropriate, and for every person has different, probably some people they need the earlier phase longer than the next one, so this should be part of yourself. And if you get along well with these phases of sleep, for example, which is, you no need to know which one is phase 1 or phase 2 or what phase of sleep, but the thing is, when you fully rested means you have adequate phases you go through. This is one of the issues when we talk about using snooze and so on,
Yep.
because alarm clock, for example, you awake, the clock doesn't cross properly, during phases of sleep that I mentioned earlier. It can, you probably you already slept for 6-7 hours, but when you use alarm clock, for example, you being awake at the middle of some of these phases, which is this is probably the issue we would like to discuss further.
Yep,
about
exactly.
this. Yeah.
So I want to get to that. We'll be taking a short break, but coming up, we learn more about sleep cycles and the relationship between that and the snooze button on the Bigger Picture BFM 89.9.
This is a download from BFM 89.9. The business station.
Good afternoon, you are listening to The Bigger Picture. I'm Lee Treelan. With me today, Dr. Muhsin Ahmad Zahari, President of the Sleep Disorder Society of Malaysia. We are discussing sleep, snoozing and losing. So Dr. Muhsin, earlier you mentioned the idea of sleep cycles. And yes, I think we're all aware that there is light sleep, deep sleep,
Yes.
so on. And as you rightly point out, we don't necessarily need to know which phase of sleep we're in because it's impossible.
Yes.
But recently, an article on CNN asked the question, is the snooze button bad for you? Now, how is this related to sleep cycles?
Yes, this is very interesting. When we use alarm clock, for example, your sleep might be interrupted at the middle of when you're supposed to continue sleep, during that time. So this will make what we call, the term we coin is sleep inertia. Inertia means the period after you've been awakened, from a sleep, the immediate time. So some people have this for I would say 5 minutes. Some people might extend for 1, 2, 3 hours. But in average, usually 30 minutes, it will resolve. Sleep inertia. So sleep inertia, what happened during this period when you awake? Your cognitive, your thinking, your physical get back to transition between a status of asleep to status of awake. So the body have to do adjustment and so on. So when you use alarm clock, we snooze, for example, we tend to be wake up, perhaps not as appropriate time during the phases of sleep itself. So when you wake up not in the right phase, the sleep initial effect, as I mentioned earlier, might be last longer, or will be more effect toward your thinking, toward your physical feeling. You feel tired, and so on. And this is depends. Sleep inertia. For example, someone needs sleep of 7-8 hours, but sleep for 3 hours, for example, and awakened by the clock. You probably not have enough doses of sleep itself, and that's one thing. Secondly, at the middle of that 3 hours, 4 hours, what they call your body, you have melatonin actually. I think many people familiar with melatonin, that the hormone that being produced during your sleep. So it is actually at the peak. When at the peak, for example, then you awake. This is a problem, Your physical probably try to be awake, but your mind still half awake, So
how do we solve this problem then? Would the solution be to know roughly what your ideal hours of sleep are, and then go to sleep a certain amount of time before you have to get up and rely on your body's natural waking up cycle to do that for you. Because I think many of us will find, at least I can speak for myself, that when I wake up without an alarm clock, that's usually when I feel at my best. And I assume that that's because that's when my body wants me to wake up. But it's usually because I'm trying to get that extra 2 hours no matter what. And, when I wake up at 9 instead of 7 after that, I feel awful.
Yes.
So what's the solution?
So the best, to avoid these problems, and you have to know yourself. Definitely, I agree. Naturally awaken from sleep is the best. Usually, if you have enough cycle in your sleep, phases been through adequately, you feel fully rested and energetic. More than that, you feel very motivated to go to work. You feel very fresh. So, but that's the most important, because if you habitually using alarm clock, for example, and you snooze yourself, you just imagine how many times you snooze. Every 10 minutes. So it's about to enter the cycle. I would say scientifically it's phase 1, phase 2, for example, that you awake, and you do it multiple times. So this can have effect for the rest of the day, I'm afraid, So you're supposed to start at work at 9, it end up, you feel really fresh, the effect of the sleep inertia that I mentioned just now. Probably 2 hours later, you start at 10, then you just about start to feeling fresh and go to work, and can be able to focus to the task, whatever you've been assigned to. So, but if you naturally wake up, that probably you don't have wasted that earlier time,
that moment of sleep
inertia and so on. So one of the trick determine how long you need natural sleep, and sleep earlier in the night, rather than drag until midnight and so on.
Which leads me to my next question, actually. What time should we be getting to bed? Is there an ideal time? Because, and I'm not including people who work odd hours, but for your regular, 8 o'clock or 8:30 start time person, what time should we be getting to bed?
Yeah. So, when we say sleep time, when we should get to the bed, actually I think depend on how long you need to sleep and what time you want to wake up. That means sleep itself need a timing and planning, so, and make it a habit. So I would say generally people always go to sleep. I would say if someone come to me, sleep at 10 and 12, between 10 and 12, I think that would be normal, I would say normal time people go to the bed and sleep. However, if you keep this normal habit and maintain it, you probably doesn't need alarm clock to wake up. It's a habit. But sometimes we sleep at 1 o'clock. Sometimes I would say once a week or less than that, I think should be fair, to say, okay, you need to sleep at 1 or something like that, and you need alarm clock, okay? But if regularly every night, you know that you need to wake up at 7 hours of sleep, that means if 7 hours, you probably need to you want to wake up at 6, so you need to sleep around 10 p.m., right? So if you know this is usual self or your sleep pattern, but you habitually, for some reason, for 1 week, you just sleep around 11, 12, this would demand, it will create not only sleep inertia as an issue just now, but perhaps, what they call sleep debt, finally, the subsequent week, you feel tired as well. So, make a habit to sleep as your body needs, rather than entertain whatever other things around you.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, it's been suggested that we keep our smartphones, tablets, and televisions off for about 90 minutes before bedtime.
Yeah.
Something about blue light. What is that exactly?
Okay, this is about resting our mind again to get into sleep and have a quality sleep. Because also there's studies suggested, if you in the distressful manner, or you reading horror book before sleep, or half an hour before that, you tend to get a nightmare or dream and you probably wake up intermittently, after reading something in your smartphone nowadays, when you can, very handy, you can do it on the bed. So when you have intermittent awakening and you sleep not fully rested during a sleep itself, this will cause your quality of sleep, you feel a lack of quality of sleep. So the advice is get the brain rest about, I would say, 1.5 hour or at least 1 hour before sleep. So that probably adequate to forget about other things and get yourself listen to good music. Some people, they love to rest while listen music or being quiet in the dark room, meditate, whatever. But preparation physically and mentally for the sleep itself, that's
having
important.
A routine, I guess,
Yes,
is quite a good idea.
habits, yeah.
Okay. On the other hand, there are all sorts of sleep apps available for download on smartphones, some of which actually use the time that you go to sleep to calculate your sleep cycles and wake you up appropriately, so they do the work for you. Would this be helpful, or should we really just be trying to do this on our own?
In my opinion, for many people, the phases of sleep, the physiological from medical point of view, phase 1, phase 2, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, non-REM sleep, not very important. Good to know if you're interested or you have problem, probably is more important for you to know, like for example in the sleep lab. But using what you call application, for example, it's just nice to know about yourself. You probably know, I need like half an hour for the first cycle of your stage 1 sleep, but perhaps for many people that means nothing. So I have to say the more important thing, when you wake up, you feel fresh. I think that's the index of you adequate to pass stage 1, stage 2, 3 and 4 and non-REM sleep.
And that's math that you should be doing for yourself, right?
Yes,
to
exactly.
see what's right for you. Okay.
Correct.
Earlier you mentioned melatonin, and of course some supplements containing melatonin are marketed to help people sleep. Do they have any health merit?
Yes. It's not it's not fall into a category of medicine. Some of them is purely supplementary, and just to be careful, when you get supplementary, it must be certified, rather than anything on the shelf that being sold as supplementary. So melatonin, the role is has been helpful in those who actually traveling a lot, jet lag, for example, because as I mentioned at the early part of our conversation, melatonin can help you to sleep. So when you are asleep, the melatonin build up. So when you have a time, time different from your ordinary physiological needs to sleep and the new environment, because you travel far from home, how many time zone you pass through, melatonin can help you to sleep. So there's a role for melatonin to help sleep. But after all, regularly use supplementary or medication, unless it's medically indicated, better to get medical advice rather than using it for long term.
And when would it be medically prescribed? Under what circumstances would a doctor say, okay, I think you need sleeping pills, for example?
We look at various reasons why people cannot sleep. It can be, as I mentioned earlier, OSA, obstructive sleep apnea. That's very important. It's not sleeping tablet. If you unable to sleep, you feel not rested in the morning, and you awake many times, but when you sleep, somebody, probably your partner, your spouse, claim you have what they call you are snoring loudly. Instead, sleeping tablet is not being indicated. If you use that sleeping tablet, it can make the situation worse. In contrary, there are some circumstances that purely because of very stressful situation and so on, and we have to identify what the person go through. That we have many occasions patient actually have some form of depression, due to work demand, due to family problem, relationship problem, and so on, and it's end up difficulty and sleep again. And this is again not yet go to the sleeping tablet. It should be treated what's actually the cause of the problem, and
talk therapy
or getting help from health professional. That's very, very important. But there's probably 1-2% of the whole range after we examine, after patient seek advice from us, we absolutely cannot find no other problem, but only what we call primary sleep insomnia. This perhaps sleeping tablets have a primary role, I would say, but it must be used cautiously, and we try not to prolong the sleeping tablet as a primary treatment for the sleeping issues. So the main thing, the message is, we need to treat what actually the root of the problem that caused the sleep difficulties, but not simply artificially induce you to sleep with the sleeping tablet that presume problem solved, but it might get you to another problem, subsequently.
So for those of us who don't necessarily have a major life problem, we're just dealing with general stress, not sleeping well, too busy, all these different things, what message would you have for us to get a good night's sleep?
Okay. The main thing, have a healthy lifestyle. Healthy lifestyle include healthy or good habitual sleep. So in other words, sleep hygiene, what we use the words. So sleep hygiene is very important. It's not like one off or certain time we do it. It make an habit. So for example, sleep at the regular time, wake up at the regular time, identify your needs, hours of sleep, avoid smoking before sleep. Avoid smoking forever is better, because otherwise you get obstructive sleep apnea. And also alcohol should be minimized or not being used like a few hours before sleep, because it can also disturb the sleep pattern. And bed, for example, it should be for sleep, not for smartphone, not for doing computer. Easy to say rather than to do it. And your environment to sleep the room should be conducive, not so bright. And some people have plenty of occasion. Patient said, I cannot sleep, I open the television, subsequently, or play games, Just imagine your brain continues to work and you already have sleeping problem, and it will make it worse, the situation. So sleep hygiene is very important for all people have a good healthy sleep.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhsin.
You're welcome.
I've been speaking to Dr. Muhsin Ahmad Zahari, President of the Sleep Disorder Society of Malaysia. We've been discussing sleep, snoozing and losing on The Bigger Picture, BFM 89.9.